This happened a couple of weeks ago. I'm a 32-year-old journalist. I usually tell war stories. I traveled to Southeast Asia to find out lost tales from World War II. I found myself deep in the jungles of Indonesia. The air was thick and humid. The jungle was alive with sounds. I wandered past rusty tanks and old bullet shells. I was looking for a village that held secrets about the soldiers who fought there. I couldn't stop thinking about it. When I arrived at the village, the sun was setting. The locals seemed nervous. An elderly man finally invited me to sit with him. His hands shook as he spoke. He told me about strange disappearances during the war. Soldiers would vanish overnight, he said. The shadows, he whispered, they come for them. At first, I thought it was just a story to scare children. Maybe the jungle was playing tricks on me. But I felt a chill go down my spine. I listened, even with my doubts. Days passed. I kept asking questions and looking for photographs. I found a few old albums hidden in a dark room. The faces in the pictures looked terrified. Their eyes were wide with fear. I wondered what they had seen. At night, I struggled to sleep. I heard whispers and rustling outside my tent. I told myself it was just the wind or animals. One night, I stepped outside for fresh air. It was dark. The jungle felt alive. I felt watched. Leaves rustled nearby, and the skin on my neck prickled. I tried to shake it off. I listened closely but only heard distant animal calls. The locals talked in hushed tones, especially when the jungle was mentioned. My heart raced. Had they really seen something? Were the soldiers mad with fear, or was something real lurking in the dark? Things got weirder. I saw strange lights flickering deep in the trees. It felt like something was moving behind me. I shivered but found nothing. The villagers avoided questions about the war. Their eyes grew wide every time I mentioned it. My heart pounded. What was I missing? Then came a moment that shook me. I was sitting alone under a heavy silence. Suddenly, a loud crack echoed through the night. I jumped. A figure stepped out of the shadows. I thought it was a soldier. His face was twisted with horror. I gasped, but he didn't say anything. My heart pounded as he reached out. His hand trembled. "Help," he whispered. I blinked, and he vanished, just like that. Now, I think about that night often. I'm not sure what I really saw. But something didn't want me digging deeper. Every time I close my eyes, I can feel the jungle still watching. Maybe, just maybe, that something is still out there. The following morning, I felt restless. I needed to do something. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was missing a crucial piece of this puzzle. I decided to visit the local library. The building was small but filled with dusty shelves. I hoped I could find something in the old books or records that would explain the stories I had heard. As I leafed through brittle pages, I stumbled upon a newspaper article from 1945. The headline made my heart race: Reports of Flesh-Eating Creatures by Japanese Soldiers in the Jungle During World War II. My hands trembled. I read on, and the details were chilling. Soldiers reported strange disappearances and strange figures lurking in the shadows at night. They said they could hear whispers, voices calling them deeper into the jungle. I needed to know more. But before I could gather my thoughts, a sudden noise interrupted me. The door creaked open, and a group of villagers entered. They glanced my way, their eyes wide with concern. I could feel anxiety in the air. One of them, a woman with a worn face, approached me. "You must leave," she pleaded. "You are in danger." "Danger? From what?" I asked, confused. "From the jungle," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. The other villagers nodded, looking uneasy. The woman glanced toward the door as if something might come through. No one should dig into the past. The shadows still hunt for the truth. I felt a knot in my stomach. Was this fear justified, or were they overreacting? I needed to confront the jungle's secrets, but these warnings made me doubt my decisions. Before I could respond, they hurried out as if something was chasing them. I sat back down, a cold sweat forming on my brow. My heart raced as I glanced back at the article. I thought about the figure I had seen in the shadows. The words echoed in my mind. Perhaps that soldier was reaching out for more than help. Maybe he was a warning. I stood up and left the library, determined to piece together the reports and the strange sights. But as I stepped outside, the air shifted. Suddenly, the sky darkened, and a thick mist rolled in from the jungle. It was unlike anything I'd seen before. The locals had vanished, and I felt more alone than ever. I glanced down the narrow path leading into the jungle. The trees swayed, casting long shadows that looked like fingers reaching for me. My instincts screamed to run, but I was drawn to the darkness. Something felt out of place, like a secret waiting just for me. That's when I saw a flicker of movement beneath the trees. A shadow darted away, quick and low. My breath caught in my throat. I knew I had to follow. If the villagers were right, the truth was buried, and it was time to dig deeper, no matter the cost. I stepped cautiously onto the narrow jungle path, the mist swirling around me like a living thing. Each step added weight to my chest. I wanted to turn back. The villagers' warning echoed in my mind, but the flicker of movement pulled me forward. I had to see what lurked in the shadows. The smells of damp earth and decaying leaves filled the air, intensifying with every step I took. I strained my ears for any signs of life, but all I could hear was the sound of my own heartbeat. I felt like I was intruding on a world that had its own rules, and I was unwelcome. As I walked deeper, the trees grew thicker, their canopies blocking what little light remained. I felt the pressure of the darkness close in around me. Then I saw it again, a blur between the trunks, heading deeper into the thicket. My curiosity battled against my instincts. I pressed on. Suddenly, I stumbled upon a clearing. The mist hung low, twisting like ribbons in the air. In the center stood an old, crumbling structure, half consumed by the forest. It looked like a forgotten outpost, the remnants of something once significant. I felt a chill run down my spine. This place was abandoned, but it held a weight of stories. I hesitated, then stepped closer. Faded words were carved into the stone outside, coordinates marking not just a location but a memory. The article from the library echoed in my mind, the reports of the soldiers. They had found something here. I could feel it as I examined the structure. I caught movement out of the corner of my eye. My heart raced. I turned sharply, searching the shadows around me. Nothing. Just trees and creeping mist. Then, a low growl rumbled from behind me. I froze, adrenaline spiking through me. I turned slowly, and there it was, a creature, eyes glinting in the dim light. It crouched low, watching me. My expectations shattered. This wasn't a simple animal. Its shape was distorted, more human than beast, yet it moved as fluidly as a predator ready to strike. Panic surged as the creature took a step forward, low and menacing. Memories of the article flooded back, stories of soldiers lost in the jungle, whispers that drew them in. Was this what they had seen? I knew I had to act fast. My options were limited. I could run or confront it. I took a step back, trying to appear less threatening, but the smell of rot and decay from its breath filled the air. Then, the creature spoke. Just one word, barely a breath: leave. Chills ran down my spine. It was clear this was no simple warning, it was a command steeped in authority. I felt an overwhelming urge to flee, but my feet were frozen. Was this creature what the villagers feared? Was it the keeper of the secrets I sought? As it lunged forward, everything blurred. I turned and sprinted back towards the path, adrenaline pushing me faster. I could hear it pursuing me, a shadow moving at supernatural speed. My mind raced. I had stumbled onto something far more dangerous than I had anticipated. Suddenly, I broke through the mist and back into the faint light of the jungle edge. I didn't dare look back. The weight of the past was heavier than I imagined, and I realized with clarity understanding could come at a cost. The sun was rising, casting golden rays through the foliage as I emerged from the jungle. It felt surreal to be back in the light, a reminder of how fragile safety can be. My heart was racing, and I couldn't shake the feeling that the creature was still watching me from the shadows. I inhaled deeply, trying to calm my racing thoughts, but the smells of the jungle lingered, a harsh reminder of what I had nearly become a part of. I stumbled towards the village, my legs shaky. I needed to regroup, to process what happened. The villagers' fearful glances made sense now. They knew something I hadn't, something terrifying that lay within those trees. As I walked, fragments of conversations I'd overheard echoed in my mind. Whispers about soldiers, strange noises, and something lurking just beyond the trees flashed through my memory. Arriving back at the village felt like stepping into a different world. Children played in the dirt, elders shared stories while the sun rose higher. I was drawn to the gathering place where villagers often congregated. I needed answers, and I hoped they would feel inclined to share. I approached a small group, hesitant yet resolute. Their chatter quieted as they noticed my disheveled appearance. I caught the eyes of an elderly woman, her gaze penetrating but not unkind. "You went into the jungle, didn't you?" she asked, her voice edged with concern. I nodded, swallowing hard. "I saw something. A creature. It told me to leave." The weight of that moment hit me again, and I fought to hold back any tremors in my voice. A murmur rippled through the spectators. The woman's brows furrowed. "You're lucky to be here, child. Many who see it do not return." Her words made my stomach drop, the gravity of what I had escaped settling like a stone. "Why does it guard this place?" I pressed, desperation seeping into my words. "What happened to the soldiers?" The villagers exchanged uneasy glances, and the woman sighed. "They came long ago, searching for treasure, for glory. They found only death." She lowered her voice, as if the jungle itself could listen. "What they disturbed remains. A pact was made. The creature is its guardian." "A pact?" I felt the remnants of fear wash over me again. "But what kind of creature is it?" "The jungle creates monsters, child. The soldiers' greed twisted the land. That creature is what they became." Her words struck me like a blow, revealing a truth I couldn't ignore. Then I remembered the coordinates carved into the stone. The clearing, the structure, it had something important, didn't it? Something tied to the past. She nodded solemnly. "Tread carefully. The knowledge you seek could lead to more danger. What they uncovered should remain buried." My mind raced. I had stumbled into the heart of a mystery, a history steeped in horror. But there was something more I needed to know. Before I could voice my next question, a scream rang out from the edge of the village. "We must hide!" a voice shouted. In an instant, panic erupted. I turned to the jungle, already feeling the air shift. What was emerging from the shadows? And then, a chilling realization hit me. I had sought answers, but now I might be forced to confront the very creature that haunted my thoughts. The true horror of the past was not yet done with me. My heart raced as the villagers scattered in every direction. I felt a surge of panic. I should have run too, but something held me in place. Curiosity, or maybe foolishness. From the edge of the village, I heard a low growl, echoing through the trees, a sound that chilled me to my core. "Where do we go?" a villager screamed as he ran past me, his eyes wide with terror. I took a step back, glancing toward the jungle where shadows swayed ominously. The memories of what I had seen weighed heavily on me. That creature, the guardian of the jungle, was real. I remembered the warning etched on the elderly woman's face. I needed to find shelter. I bolted towards the nearest hut, ducking behind the crude wooden structure. As I pressed my back against the wall, I could hear whispers rising around me talk of the creature, of the stories long held in the hearts of these people. "Stay low," a voice urged. I turned to see a young man crouched beside me, his breath coming in quick bursts. His eyes were filled with fear. They say it hunts when the sun goes down. It can smell fear. Do you know what it is? I whispered, my curiosity overpowering my caution that he shook his head, glancing over his shoulder as if expecting the creature to appear at any moment. No one knows its true form. Some say it's a beast, others think it's the souls of those lost in the jungle. My thoughts raced. The soldiers, their greed, and the fruitless search for treasure twisted them into something unrecognizable. Was this creature more than just a guardian? That's when I felt the ground tremble slightly beneath me, almost imperceptibly. I looked down, my heart pounding with anticipation. The villagers around me tensed, their eyes shifting toward the jungle. A rustling erupted, breaking the tense silence. "Get inside!" Someone shouted, and a few of us scrambled to the door of the closest hut. I didn't want to be alone, the thought of facing whatever was out there by myself was unbearable. I followed the young man as he darted inside, pulling me with him. We squeezed into the small space, the air thick with dread. I strained to hear outside, where all was still, only the distant calls of birds breaking the silence. I could feel his body tremble beside me. "Why did you go into the jungle?" he suddenly asked, his voice a harsh whisper. It was I hesitated. What was it? Curiosity? The search for truth? I had to know what happened. You shouldn't have gone. No one returns from that darkness. I steeled myself, determination cutting through the fear. I'm not finished. There's something I need to find. More answers. He turned to me, desperation etched in his features. What if it's not answers you find? What if it's the darkness that finds you instead? Before I could respond, another blood-curdling growl echoed through the village. It was closer now. My heart raced anew, but I felt a sudden resolve. I was in this nightmare, and I wouldn't go quietly. Just then, the hut's door creaked open slightly, and in the faint light, I saw a figure step inside. The air went cold. My breath caught in my throat. Someone's here, I thought. But as I looked closer, I realized that it wasn't a villager at all. And then I understood, with a sickening sense of clarity, that the creature had found me. The figure was massive, shrouded in darkness, its silhouette shifting against the faint light that trickled in from the door. I could barely make out its features, but the glint of something sharp flashed in the half-light. Goosebumps prickled along my arms as dread settled like ice in my stomach. Stay quiet, the young man beside me whispered. His eyes were wide, fear radiating off him like heat. I nodded, heart pounding too loudly in my ears. The creature moved closer, the rustle of its body through the hut's entrance made the air thicken with anxiety. It paused just beyond the threshold, inhaling deeply, as if gauging the scent in the air. I held my breath, panic clutching my throat. I couldn't shake the image of the stories I'd heard. The villagers spoke of things that prowled the darkness, but nothing could have prepared me for this. Was this beast the guardian they had feared? Or was it something worse, a creature twisted by the despair of the jungle? As I watched, a low growl buzzed from within its throat, sending tremors through the floor. The young man shifted beside me, his shoulder knocking against mine, and I bit my lip to keep from crying out. Stay still, he hissed, his eyes darting back toward the door, and then it happened. The creature stepped fully into the hut, filling the small space with an overwhelming presence. My gaze locked on its eyes, or what I thought were its eyes, dark voids, haunting and deep. They seemed to draw me in, as if taunting me with the unknown. Is it looking for something? I whispered, not even sure if he could hear me over the pounding of my heart. Or someone. His voice was low, barely a breath. The creature sniffed the air again, more pointed this time. I turned my gaze to the back of the hut where a pile of discarded tools gathered dust in the corner. The creature's attention was locked on me, as if it had made its choice. Suddenly, I remembered why I had come here: the stories, the warning about the soldiers, and how they had desecrated the jungle. This beast was the spirit of vengeance for what had been taken. Perhaps it was true those lost souls, angry and restless, had become one with the creature. Just then, a loud crash erupted outside, sending a shockwave of noise through the stillness. The creature jerked, its focus shifting from me to the door. My chance. I couldn't waste this moment. I pushed the young man hard go. As I moved to the side, trying to blend into the shadows of the hut. I knew I had to escape, to learn the truth about the creature and face whatever darkness lay ahead. He hesitated just a heartbeat, then darted to the exit. But the creature reacted swiftly, blocking his path with a formidable paw. "Run!" I shouted. "Get help!" As he scrambled toward the door, I felt a rush of fierce instinct pushing me onward. I wasn't about to let fear dictate my fate. Then, everything went dark. The shadows swirled, and I felt the weight of the creature's gaze upon me once more. I took a step forward, ready to confront whatever awaited me in the darkness. But as I did, I heard another growl closer this time. Suddenly, I realized, it wasn't just looking for food. It was hunting for something much more important, the truth. I blinked hard, trying to adjust to the dim light filtering back in. The darkness clung to me, and I felt as if I were still in its grip. I could hear the creature shifting, its breathing heavy and primal. I didn't dare move, not with that sound so close, but then, with a sudden rush of courage, I stepped into the bright light of the moon that streamed through the crumbling roof. I needed to see what I was dealing with. The beast had shifted near the door, its massive form blocking the exit. Fear twisted my insides, but I reminded myself that I might be the only one left to uncover the truth. Ignoring the chill of uncertainty, I scanned the hut. There had to be something here I could use, a weapon or a distraction. My eyes landed on an old machete lying among the clutter. Slowly, careful not to draw attention, I crouched down and reached for it, my fingers trembling as I grasped the handle. The creature growled again, drawing my attention back. Its head tilted, as if sensing my movement. I froze, heart racing. "It's looking for something," I mumbled to myself, mostly to drown out the fear in my mind. The wild rumors about the thing protecting the jungle had to mean something. It wanted vengeance on those who had wronged it, and now, I stood on its territory, unwittingly playing a part in a story older than time that I couldn't keep hiding. I had to find out what the creature wanted from me. Taking a deep breath, I stood tall, machete in hand, and faced it. My grip tightened around the blade as I made eye contact with those hollow voids once again. "Who are you?" I asked, my voice more steady than I felt. To my surprise, the beast shifted back slightly, sniffing the air again. Its eyes flickered toward the darkness outside the hut. That moment of distraction was all I needed. I moved closer, heart pounding, then, I noticed something. In the faint light, the rugged skin of the creature glimmered oddly. It looked like artifacts. Symbols etched into the skin, as if telling a story of its own. That moment felt surreal. The creature was a messenger, not just a hunter. A chill raced down my spine. But before I could examine it more closely, the young man burst back into the hut, panting and wild-eyed. "It's them. The soldiers." He gasped, clutching his side. "What?" I exclaimed, turning toward him. "What do you mean?" He pointed shakily behind him, his face ashen. "They're coming this way. Not just any soldiers, those who were in this jungle during the war. They said they'd return." My stomach twisted as I glanced back at the creature. This wasn't just about the past, it felt like the hunt was about to expand. My heart sank. I had awakened something deep in the jungle, and it was pulling us all into its twisted history. Then I heard a distant shouting, the voices cutting through the night. Panic surged within me. "We need to move," I shouted, grabbing his arm. But as we turned to leave, the creature growled, a reminder that it was watching us both, weighing our intentions. I felt tears prick at the corners of my eyes. What does it want from us? And then I realized, in running from our past, we might have played right into another's hands. My breath caught in my throat. We might not have a choice anymore. Just as we stepped closer to the door, a loud crash erupted from outside. The shadows shifted once again, and the creature prowled forward, blocking our escape. "Move!" I shouted, adrenaline kicking in, but it was too late. We were trapped. I pressed myself against the wall, eyes darting between the creature and the door. "We have to find another way out," I whispered, half to him and half to myself. The young man was breathing heavily, clearly still shaken from his encounter. The creature's growl deepened, rumbling through the wooden walls like thunder. It seemed alive with ancient fury, and I could feel its gaze boring into me. I had no idea how to communicate with it, but I couldn't shake the feeling that it was waiting, deciding if we were friends or foes. "Look," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "There's a window over there." He nodded to the far corner of the room, where the remnants of a shattered pane hung loosely in the frame. It was our only hope that I scanned the hut, glancing back at the beast quickly to see it still hesitating, primal instincts raging beneath its surface. "On three," I said, gripping the machete tightly. 1, 2. I didn't wait for 3. I dashed toward the window. The young man followed closely behind me. My heart raced. Every muscle in my body screamed for me to run, and the sound of shouts grew closer outside. The glass crunched underfoot as I scrambled onto the ledge. From the corner of my eye, I noticed the creature lurching toward us. "Hurry!" I yelled, my panic lifting my voice. The young man clambered up beside me just as the creature lunged, its claws swiping the air where we were only moments before. We both launched ourselves through the broken window, landing hard on the damp ground outside that I gasped for breath, scrambling to my feet. Moonlight illuminated the jungle around us, casting eerie shadows in the underbrush. But that wasn't what caught my attention. Crashing through the dense foliage behind us was a platoon of men, their shouts ringing with the urgency of long-buried vengeance. "Run!" I yelled again, and we sprinted into the trees, branches slapping against my face. I could hear the creature howling in frustration as it seemed to shake the ground beneath us. That we darted deeper into the jungle, adrenaline pushing us forward. Why did they come back? I shouted over my shoulder, panicked thoughts racing through my mind. "I don't know." He panted, dodging low branches like a practiced warrior. Suddenly, the air changed. The usual night sounds were swallowed by a heavy silence, and I felt an unsettling shift in the atmosphere. "We need to hide," I said, scanning our surroundings. Just ahead, a large tree with a hollow base loomed. Without hesitation, we ducked inside. It was dark and cramped, and the scent of damp earth filled my nostrils. I felt vulnerable, my heart hammering in my chest. The sounds of the soldiers grew nearer. My mind raced with questions. What had they unleashed in pursuit of revenge? What were those symbols on the creature? And why was that creature so familiar with us? That's when I saw it movement in the shadows just outside our hiding place. "There is something else out there," I whispered urgently. "Something in the jungle." And then it stepped into the moonlight, revealing itself as an old soldier, battered and scarred, eyes burning with madness. "Run!" he shouted, his voice echoing into the night. But it was too late. The old soldier lunged at us, eyes wide with a mix of fear and desperation. "They're coming!" he yelled, before suddenly tripping over exposed roots and crashing to the ground. I hesitated, my instincts screaming to flee. "What are you talking about?" I gasped, crouching low to keep out of sight. "They're back," he said, scrambling to his feet with surprising speed. "The creatures from the camp. We thought we'd sealed them away. You have to believe me." My head spun. I remembered the stories, the whispers of monstrous beings lurking in the shadows of the jungle, released by reckless experimentation. "What creatures?" I asked, my voice shaking. The man grabbed my arm, urgency etched on his face. "Flesh-eaters. They were meant to be contained. We didn't know they would come for us." Panic surged through me. In that moment, everything clicked, the creature, the soldiers, the fear in the jungle air. It was all connected in a horrifying tapestry. You know how to stop them then? I demanded, desperately wrestling with the truth. He stammered, looking over his shoulder. We have to move. The men outside. Before he could finish, the howling intensified, blending with the shouts of the platoon that had been hunting us. The creature was closer now, rampaging through the underbrush, tearing a path to our hiding spot. We can't stay here, I said, pulling away from him. What if the soldiers find us first? He nodded, his face paling. We have to reach the old bunker. It's protected. If we can make it there, we might have a chance. Lead the way, I said. We rushed out of the hollow tree and into the jungle, retracing our earlier route. Night sounds returned, but the tension thickened. Every snap of a twig felt amplified, every whisper of wind laden with threat. The foliage around us seemed to pulse with the promise of danger. The soldier glanced back frequently. They're getting closer, he shouted. I could feel their pursuit like a dark shadow that chased us through the underbrush. As we ran, I caught glimpses of shapes in the darkness, something flickering between the trees. Fear twisted my stomach. What are those shadows? I yelled, struggling to keep pace. Just the creatures. We have to keep going, he shouted. Suddenly, a rustle to my left made me jump. I turned, eyes wide, just in time to see several figures emerging from the trees. They were gaunt and twisted, mouths filled with jagged teeth, eyes burning with unholy hunger. Run! I screamed, sprinting ahead, forcing my legs to move faster than they ever had. The howls of the creatures increased, echoing all around us. Behind me, I heard the soldier stumble, gasping as he fell. I didn't dare look back. The darkness threatened to swallow me whole. Keep going, he shouted weakly. I wanted to reach for him, to help him up, but my instinct screamed for survival. I pushed onward, toward the faint glow of something up ahead. Finally, through the chaos, I spotted the outline of the bunker through the trees. But we weren't safe yet. The desperate sounds of pursuit filled my ears, and the creatures were closing in. When I tripped, crashing to the ground. As I scrambled to my feet, a shadow loomed over me. I froze, breath caught in my throat. Something was here in the night, and it was hungry. I rolled away just in time to avoid the snapping jaws of a creature that had lunged at me from the underbrush. Heart pounding, I pushed myself to my feet and bolted for the bunker, desperate hands grasping at the rough bark of trees for support. The walls of the bunker grew closer, and I could feel the pulse of the forest quickening around me, the very air charged with danger. Behind me, the guttural howls of the creatures echoed, mingling with the frantic shouts of the soldiers as they struggled to keep their own panic in check. My legs were burning, and I pushed harder, knowing that the bunker had to be our only chance. Just before I reached the entrance, I glanced back, catching sight of the soldier I had been following. He was struggling against a wave of grotesque figures emerging from the shadows, a flurry of distorted forms with flesh torn and tattered, eyes glowing with a sickly light. No! I screamed, the word bursting from my lips as I reached for him. But I was already too far. I had to make a choice. I turned back, throwing myself through the bunker's threshold just as the soldier was dragged screaming into the mass of writhing shadows. The door fell shut behind me. The air inside the bunker was stale, but it felt like a refuge, an island within the storm of chaos. I pressed my back against the door, panting heavily, straining to hear the noises outside. The howls of the creatures were louder now, mingling with incoherent shouts from the soldiers. The darkness pressed in against the walls, a living thing waiting for a chance to break through. I glanced around the cramped space, filled with the remnants of the past, rusty tools, faded maps, and crumbling photos of soldiers who once stood strong here. My fingers brushed over a dusty crate, and I pulled it toward me, hoping to find something I could use. Inside were old flares, and among them, a tattered journal. I barely had time to skim through the yellowed pages before the dull thud of heavy impacts against the bunkered door jolted me back to reality. Thinking fast, my survival instinct kicked in. I hastily grabbed a couple of flares and pocketed the journal to read later. If I could hold off the creatures, I might buy myself just enough time to figure out my next move. I climbed toward a narrow window, prepared to ignite a flare to distract the onslaught outside. Cracking open the window, the howl of the jungle filled my senses, strong and feral. With a determined grip, I lit one of the flares, the sudden burst of light illuminating the space in harsh red-orange hues. I threw it out into the darkness, watching it arc through the air and land with a plume of dazzling light. The creatures screeched, drawn to the flare as they clawed their way toward it, momentarily diverted by the unexpected brightness. "Hurry," I whispered to myself, knowing this reprieve wouldn't last. I scrabbled on the floor near the window, searching for any kind of exit. But I could feel time slipping like sand through my fingers. Outside, the calls of both soldiers and creatures rose in unison, a cacophony of madness and chaos that I leaned out the window cautiously, trying to gauge my surroundings, when the realization struck me like a hard blow. I remembered the journal had spoken of a hidden escape route. It was my chance, a sliver of hope buried in the horror of the past. Gripping the old journal tightly, I began to read aloud under my breath, following the details as best as I could. The mention of a tunnel, an old escape route leading deeper into the earth, formed a plan in my mind that as the howls and screams outside began to crescendo, I spotted a loose floorboard. My heart raced as I pried it loose, revealing a narrow shaft that descended into darkness. I didn't hesitate. I squeezed through the opening, clutching the journal tightly against my chest. As I descended, the sounds of chaos above faded, replaced instead by an uncomfortable silence that enveloped me. It was dark, utterly dark, but there was one thought that resonated fiercely: the chaos above would soon consume me if I didn't keep moving. That I felt around the corridor, my hands brushing against damp stone walls. The outlines of strange symbols reflected the light of the flare I had thrown. Had the soldiers been drawn to this place out of sheer curiosity? Or had they awakened something they had no hope of controlling? I had no answers, but one thing was clear: the price of knowledge often lies tangled in blood and shadows. That I reached a small, dimly lit chamber, the walls covered in crude carvings that seemed almost alive. My breath hitched in my throat as I recognized the drawings of soldiers, of horrifying transformations, of merciless beings. These were the secrets buried in a jungle they had been warned of for decades. That I could hear faint whispers, rising and falling like the wind echoes from the stories of the past merging with the present. As I tried to make sense of them, a chill settled in the air. I felt the pull of the jungle once more. Was it calling me back? I had escaped the immediate threat, but sunlight would not break through this labyrinth. And I could only wonder whether the real monsters were the shadows that lurked in the treetops, or the thirst for truth that might well demand a price higher than I was ready to pay. Often, I think about that night. I escaped the jungle, but I never truly left. I still hear the whispers sometimes. Perhaps they're warnings, or maybe just memories lost to time. Either way, I know the shadows still watch, waiting for someone else to seek the truths that should remain buried.